Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre, and today we have a very special guest coming to us from Spain, author and researcher Ole Dammegard. Welcome, Ole.
Thank you so much, Alfred. It's a real pleasure being back.
Well, Ole, you have just arrived from the island of Utøya in Norway, and events took place in Oslo and in Utøya in 2011. And you've done your own investigation. And so please bring us the results, the very special results that you've gotten from your investigation personally there.
Okay, for those of your listeners who are not aware of me and my work, I spent about 30 years dedicating my life to the truth and to exposing top political assassinations and false flag operations, exposing assassins and just doing my absolute utmost to make this madness stop. And for many years, I thought that so many of these assassinations and terror acts were totally separated, that they had nothing to do with each other. But then over the years, the more I looked into it, the more I dug into it deep, the more I found out that there's so many of them are actually connected, and that they're connected to what is generally known as the New World Order and the people behind that. And one of the things I try to do, I'm totally self-supported. I'm not employed by anyone or part of any group or anything like that. But what I try to do is go on location and learn for myself, get hold of witnesses, see and use as much possible as what I call Farmer Brown logic. 1 + 1 = 2. There's always a truth behind an event. There's always a reason for why these awful things happen, and it's very rarely nowadays the reason that we're being told. There's a totally different dark agenda behind it. And one of the things that this group behind the New World Order, one of the things that they use is an old Roman template called problem, reaction, solution. They try to control a big population. They're only very few. And the only way they can control us is by fear. They need us fearful. And they need us to believe that there's an outer enemy, an enemy that is threatening us from the outside, so that they can come in and protect us. Now, the thing is with this old template, problem, reaction, solution, is that they so often are secretly the ones creating the problem to get the reaction from us. And the reaction they want is the emotional outcry of total panic, saying, please, please, I need protection, save me, save me. And then we turn towards the ones that we believe we have chosen to deal with these type of situations, not understanding that they are the exact people who created the problem. And then we welcome their solution. And their solution every single time is more and more surveillance, more and more militarized police, more and more control. We have to pay to give up our human rights, our civil rights, and accept cameras everywhere, police officers, threats everywhere, being stopped and having to identify ourselves everywhere. And I mean, coming into a total sci-fi world that follows the exact agenda of the book 1984, George Orwell's. Anyway, so 4 years ago, more or less exactly on the day, it was the 22nd of July, 2011, the worst massacre since, I would say, the worst mass shooting since the Second World War took place in Norway. Norway, until then, that date, had been a peaceful country that hadn't experienced a lot of so-called terror, no terrorist attacks, no nothing like that. At the same time, they were very much involved through NATO in the bombings of Afghanistan, Libya, and so on. And a lot of protests were being heard, and Norway was in the process of maybe pulling out from what was seen as very unjust bombings of these countries and so on. And had they pulled out, there was a big chance that Denmark would have followed. Had these two countries left NATO and these bombings, no one knows how things would have, what would have happened. But then this awful tragedy happened in Norway, and after that, boom, back in line was Norway. They were claimed honorary members of NATO, and their Prime Minister, Jens Stoltenberg, was later became the head of NATO, which is, for the people who are not aware of it, it's an appointment directly done by the Bilderberg Group. The Bilderberg Group, that has been discussed many times on your program, Alfred, I'm sure, is part of the world's shadow government. People that you think are doing things for your welfare and so on, but actually have a very dark agenda, a hidden agenda that we are not aware of. So I came to Norway, and it was an absolutely amazing event, because I was given a ride down to a friend of mine that I absolutely adore. Her name is Ingunn Sigurdsdottir, and she and her husband Mick are extremely brave people who are working very hard for the liberation of mankind, doing their little part, which is not so little. One of the things that they've done, and you can hear her on the openmindconference.com website for 2014, you can hear Ingunn speak about what she and her husband has done. Because what they did was they have created what is called Iceland, an international territory free from Norway, but the size of the plot where the house was standing, their villa. And like I said, they named this place Iceland. They've given up all their national rights, they've given up their passports, they've given up their bank accounts, everything to liberate themselves, knowing that they had to pay an extremely high price. But they saw that necessary to do it for all of us to see what was possible to do and so on. The state of Norway then hit back very violently, and it ended with Ingunn being arrested and taken away, I think, by 11 armed police officers dressed in black and bulletproof vest and all of this. And this woman is just like a small little angelic being, but with the heart and bravery of a lion. Absolute incredible human being. Anyway, so I was invited home to her, and it turned out that she had a goodbye party because she and her husband are planning on leaving the country. And there were some people there I didn't know then. And then in the evening, I was asked if it was okay for me to stay in the guest room. And there was a double bed, and if I wouldn't mind sharing it with someone else. And I said, no problem at all. Then in the morning, I woke up and turned around, and there was this elder gentleman. He's 84, and his name is Per Aslak Entresvåg, a man I've never ever heard of. But while we had our little pillow talk, I was absolutely fascinated by finding out that he is the only one, as far as I know, who's written books exposing the Bilderberg Group, exposing the Trilateral Commission, the Committee of 300, the Skull and Bones, and so on, with all the connections to Norway. I mean, this man would be one of top 3 in Norway that I would track down and try to arrange a meeting with, had I even known that he existed. And here I was sharing bed with him, having a pillow talk. I mean, that was just astounding. Then I'm going to take you down this tour. I did like a 9-day tour in Norway and Sweden. If it's okay with you, Alfred, I'll just take you on a tour, also showing the incredible synchronicity that comes out of, I don't know, universe, God, I don't know what to call it, but the incredible synchronicity that comes if we are grateful for everything in our lives, if we welcome these type of things, and if we see them when they appear in our lives and when we do the right thing. So I'll just give you a taste for the days that followed. The thing is that I have hardly any money. I'm only working on donations and selling my books from my website, lightonconspiracies.com, lightonconspiracies.com. And so I was recently invited as a speaker to the Open Mind Conference in Amsterdam. There I was joined by people like Ken O'Keefe, Ian Crane, Christopher Bolin, Frank Rasmussen from Denmark, and so on. And it was an amazing experience because we came there in the name of truth. We did not come there for any aggression or hatred or anything like that. But a few days before we arrived, there was a smear campaign started in the local media in Amsterdam. I mean, big time, calling us anti-Semites, calling us Holocaust deniers, and so on. The thing was, none of us was going to give a talk about the Holocaust at all. It was about 9/11, false flag operations, the elite, and so on. But this thing with the anti-Semite, being called anti-Semite, that is when these powers have got nothing else to use. They just hammer you with that one. I remember even once I saw, I think it was CNN or Fox News or something like that, where they were talking about Building 7, the way it just went down. I mean, that it was so controlled demolition. I mean, it doesn't take an expert to see that it was taken down. It was pulled, as they said, with controlled demolition. But when this expert, being interviewed on CNN, talked about that, he was suddenly called an anti-Semite. And I thought that was just incredible, because what has that got to do with any deconstruction of a building with explosives or whatever? What has that got to do with not liking Jews or loving Jews? But this is how they do it. They hammer you when they haven't got anything else to reach for. Anyway, we this thing in Amsterdam, we had to relocate because the people owning the building was being pushed and I don't know, threatened, I don't know, but they pulled out. And so we found a new location. The police came. They found out that we were really nice people. And in the end, they just wanted to help us. And so what I did, because I believe in total nonviolence, but absolute fearless exposure of what's going on. And so when this smear campaign started in Amsterdam, of all places, I mean, this is the mecca for laid back and freedom and all of that thing, if it is what it appears to be. I mean, you can smoke a joint wherever you can take your children for a walk on a Sunday afternoon, walking down the street, and there are prostitutes dancing in the windows. If that is what you call freedom, then this is the mecca, the paradise on earth. So this should be the place also to express opinions of different sorts. But here instead, we were being slammed with this anti-Semite Holocaust denier thing. And so what I did was I contacted 50 different international radio stations and just said, please be aware, this is what is going on now. So suddenly the powers behind this, there were these dark forces that were showing their ugly face under the surface. Suddenly they were being looked upon with the spotlight at them. And also there was this Dutch female politician, very wonderful woman, who a few months before this happened had, I think she had just mentioned that she believed that ISIS was a creation by Mossad and the CIA. That got her beaten around the bush. And then after that, just before this event happened in Amsterdam, she mentioned on Facebook that, oh, this sounds like an interesting event, I might go. When that happened, she was threatened by losing her job. She was threatened if she was not allowed to, or she is not allowed to speak to the press for 2 whole years, and so on. So, I mean, what is that if not a total totalitarian state trying with extreme force to shut people up. Anyway, the whole thing just went beautifully. We came in peace, we spoke in peace, and very truthful. I mean, it was no beating around the bush. It was straight to the point. And in the end, instead of 2 days, we had 1 day, 12 hours. And then we had a big gathering in a public park the day after. Beautiful days, absolutely beautiful. Anyway, when I came back home, the man who arranged this thing, his name is Willem Veldenhof. He's a whistleblower, a former commercial pilot who's worked very hard to expose the toxic poisons that comes into airplanes nowadays through the air conditioning and so on. And he contacted me again and said, listen, we need to keep this ball rolling. Is there any way I can support you? Is there any way I can help you? And I said, really, the thing I need at the moment is for me to be able to go to Norway. So is there by any chance that you can help me with a ticket there? He said, for sure. So he was the one paying my ticket to go to Norway. I went there. I met Ingun. I met Per Aslak, this author, and very brave man. I mean, they tried to kill him several times, and he's been totally slaughtered in national press and so on for these books that he's written. Anyway, the day after, since I was near Iceland, this international territory that I created, I said to Ingun, is there any chance that we could just go there? Because I would think it would be amazing just to see this place, because I think it's sort of like a historical spot on Earth, and see it together with her and her husband. So she said, yes, sure. We borrowed a car. We went there. I saw the house. We took some photos. And then on the way back, her husband said, well, by the way, do you know that the accused mass murderer, Anders Breivik, who is the one who's in prison for this mass shooting on Utøya, he's in prison, and the prison is just on the other side of this hill. Would you like to go? I mean, I had no idea we were even close by. I didn't know where he was, what prison he was in or anything. And this was way outside Norway, like a 2-hour drive or something like that. Sorry, outside Oslo. So I said, yeah, please, let's go. So we went there. And as soon as I came, I saw that the prison was very odd compared to other prisons I've seen. Because normally when you have these high security prisons with sort of prominent prisoners like this guy, I mean, he is the #1 prisoner in Norway, you got a lot of security, barbed wires, high walls. And so. This, very different, very small prison in the outskirts of an industrial area. And also around the walls, the grass was, it looked like it was burnt brown. You know, this is Norway, it's raining all the time, so the grass was very green, but some 10 meters around the wall, it was all brown. And anyway, I got out. I said, please, can you take some photos of me in front of the prison? Maybe I can use it for interviews or articles and so on. So we did that. And then Mick said, listen, there's one thing I want to show you. So he took me around the corner, and there was this small, very anonymous looking company with, there was one building, no windows, but 6 carports in a row. And then in front of it, there was a small little wooden house, like an office building, where it says auto import and a phone number. And that sort of, I'm not sure if I'm correct here, but with my experience over 30 years, when especially information I got from my friend, the CIA whistleblower, Chip Tatum, you can read about him on chiptatum.com, an absolutely incredible human being, I think. He was a deep cover agent for 25 years. He was a black op assassin. He was one of the Night Stalker pilots, you know, these black helicopters. And he was also the commander of a team called Pegasus, which was a team of assassins directly under the control of George Bush Sr. and they carried out at least 17 assassinations in Europe and other places. So this is the closest to a real James Bond as you can get. He became a whistleblower in the mid-90s when George Bush wanted him to eliminate Ross Perot, the billionaire who was going to run for president and so on, where he totally refused. And then, well, they tried to kill him. They tried everything to shut him up, but he's still speaking out. So it's a man that I respect very much for standing up. One of the things he's told me while we've been talking and I've interviewed him and done interviews together with him is that he used to fly prisoners or people into prisons and other installations where the so-called famous doctors, he never named them, but some famous doctors were doing mind control experiments with them, or mind control, whatever they were doing with them. It was like Chip said, we flew them in, they did their thing, we flew them out. And then, as far as I know, they were then used in different operations as patsies or whatever, I don't know. But the way he described it was that often these prisons are not the big ones, but that they're a bit isolated, and nearby there's an airstrip without a flight tower. That means that they can fly in and out without any interference or anything. And then the prisoners or whoever can be transported by a van, a discreet van or so, into the prisons. They do their thing, whatever, and in and out like that. So he also said that sometimes, or I found out from other sources, that when they do these type of things, very often the area there are other companies there, and these companies are often front companies for secret agencies. They're internet security, telephone companies, or body armor, these type of thing, connected to the military, or some these type of companies, or very anonymous looking, like furniture import or car import or something like that. So when I saw this car import thing that was so anonymous, I just reacted. So I said to me, is there by any chance an airstrip nearby without a flight tower? He said, yeah, it's just over there, a kilometer or two down the road here. So that just made the hair, stand up on my arms. So, but he said, I want to show you something. So we ran around this anonymous looking building. And since he has his office only like 300-400 meters away from the prison, he and his wife sometimes take a walk through the forest, and the little track where they walk normally makes them come straight between this building and the prison wall. It's only 30 meters between the two. And when we went around the building, there were two containers, one big container by the short side of the house or the building, and then behind it there was another one. One of them was painted exactly the same color as the building, so it was very clear that it was the same owner. But the short end of the container was this light green one with a serial number and a seal. And then the one on the behind this building was a massive big green container where it said Evergreen in big white letters. And as far as I've been informed, Evergreen is one of the big CIA front companies used for many different operations connected to Air America and these other things. I'm very much into chemtrails and different airplane operations and so on. So I almost fell backwards when I saw this container, because I thought, here it is, 30 meters from the wall, the prison wall, where this man that appears to have been, he appears to be a Manchurian candidate from his behavior. I'm going to tell you more about that. But under some kind of mind control. And here we are with a container like this. And on the short end of the container was the logo of Evergreen. There was also a logo with a round logo with a blue eagle where it said US shipping and a serial number. So there I was, I didn't even know I was anywhere near the prison, and then this happens. And also when we got close to the wall, I started feeling really, really bad. And I'm normally not sensitive to energies or anything like that, but the hair just stood on end, and I started feeling a bit sick. And it was just like when you go close to like a high voltage cable or something like that, you can feel there's a difference in the air. And this is exactly where the grass was brown. And I felt, I don't know about these things, but I felt there's some kind of energy shield around this location, something that makes the grass die and that makes me feel very uncomfortable. So it was, I mean, when we drove, I had to ask them to stop the car once or twice because I needed to get out to get some fresh air. I felt really bad for about an hour or so afterwards. Anyway, so the next day I went to Oslo to do my talk. I was there to spread as much info I could about these things. And so I had made a presentation called Political Assassinations and False Flag Operations. I did the talk. There was about 40, 50 people, something like that. Not so many, but at the same time, it was the first time I was in Norway. Among them was a man from the PST, which is the secret police in Norway. I was informed that afterwards. Another person that was there was a journalist that I really admire. His name is Hans Gårder, and he's actually not a real journalist. He's just a civil engineer that has focused a lot of his life to exposing what is actually going on in the world. And he is, as far as I know, the only one that has critically looked upon these events in Norway at all. I think he's the only one. So he was in the audience, and that was a great honor for me to meet him. And so after the speech, I said, please, since you're the one who knows the most about these things, could you please take me and let me see the area around the government building where the explosion took place, and then possibly take me to the island. So first, I'm just going to give you the official story, and then I'm going to tell you what I found out and what I saw. The official story is that this lone crazy guy, extremist, his name is Anders Breivik, a Norwegian by birth, a blonde-looking, good-looking guy, that he, for some reason, decided to blow up the government building. It is said that he took a van filled with a fertilizer bomb, just like Oklahoma City, that he came and parked it right outside the entrance to the government building, then left it in a police uniform with a police helmet with the whole thing shut down in front of his face so you can't see him. And then he leaves the area with a gun in his hand and runs away. Then he jumps into a second car and takes off, going north towards this island called Utøya. After he leaves a bit, after a little while, this bomb explodes, and it just totally shatters the whole center around the government building. All the windows in all the buildings there are totally blown out. It is a massive, massive impact. Then it is said that he goes up to this island. It's about a 40-minute drive to what is called Utøya. It's a beautiful little heart-shaped island in one of the fjords in Norway. Beautiful area, absolute stunning area. It is then said that he arrives there. He goes down. There's a little ferry crossing, a ferry that only takes one car. And he goes across there. He has a big bag, very heavy one that people help him carry over. He's dressed in the police uniform and what looks like a police wetsuit. And then he goes across the island. Once he arrives to the island, he walks around very calmly, and then suddenly he starts shooting people. And he carries out around, he carries on shooting people for, I think, more than an hour. In the end, 69 young people are killed. Now, and then when the SWAT team finally arrives to the island, then he surrenders. There's no shootout, there's no nothing. They call him by name, he puts down his gun, and he's arrested. So that was the official story. Let's look upon what I would suggest actually happened. The area where this happened is the government building. The whole thing, even though it's 4 years since it happened, 4 years, nothing has been repaired. It is there like a monument over death and evil. It is, the government building itself is like a skyscraper. I don't know how many stores, but it's, I would say, at least 30 stories high. And then it's surrounded by other government buildings where all the glass, everything, nothing has been repaired at all. Instead, this massive big high building, they put like printed plastic sheets on it where you can like, printed the windows on it. So it's just like one big massive plastic sheet, like I don't know how big it is, but massive, absolutely massive. And in the other buildings where all the windows were blown out, instead of putting in new glass and renovating it, it's just standing there. They put wood in the windows and just closed them up. Very odd, spooky feeling. Then when you look at the event itself, the explosion, when you have a bomb, you always have an epicenter where the explosion comes from, and the force is pushed out in all different directions. If there's nothing in the near the epicenter, the explosion will be totally circular. But if there's like a building in front or a ceiling above or something like that, the damage will be stopped or slowed down by these things. And also the power of the explosion will always be, the destruction will always be closest to where the explosive detonated. We look at this area and it's the absolute opposite. The most damage is at the top of the building, and where the van is said to have been standing, where the explosion took place, instead of things being blown out from that area, there's loads and loads of debris in the street, nothing blown away from there. There's the ceiling above it that it should have been, it's made of concrete, so it should have been damaged from below. Instead, it looks like the concrete has melted like cheese that has been in the sun too long. One corner is just like, it looks melted. And when people were raising a critical issue about why is there no like a crater underneath the car where the car was stood, where is that? Then suddenly there appeared like a 2 meter, like that's 8 foot big crater that was not there before. I mean, when these type of things happen, you have to put a question mark around it. Also, when you see the first images that are taken, for one of the things is that the surveillance cameras that shows the van come to the government building and park it, and then where you can see this police officer, where there's no way you can see that it's Anders Breivik. It's just somebody in a police uniform that walks away. All of these photos are from an online newspaper called ABC Nyheter, ABC News in Norwegian. No, and they're taken from cameras that should belong to the government, surveillance cameras. So that is very odd, to say the least. Then also in the whole area, there are scaffolds and plastic covers, which is standard when it comes to false flag operations, because it is behind them that they can hide people, hide explosive, hide vehicles, and so on. It is one of these things that comes again and again and again. Also, a drill, when you look at false flag operations globally, one of the major things, just like if you make a pie that you need certain ingredients, one of the main ingredients is a drill. A drill with the exact same scenario as the real thing. It's just that midway or something like that, suddenly it goes live, and from being a drill, it's the real thing. And here in Oslo, the evening before this happened, there were teams of people in black uniforms, unidentified black uniforms in the area. And also the special ops team in Norway, I think these are the ones I'm trying to identify them, were having a drill in the same location that ended 22 minutes before the blast. What are the chances? The scenario was something similar, like with a mass shooting thing and also a terror attack. And then 22 minutes after it finished, boom, it happens. Then you look at the images. Even though this is in central Oslo, I mean, it's only the capital of Norway with thousands of people there. There are no people inside the buildings, as far as you can see. The first images that appears, it's totally, desolated. There's no one in the streets hardly, absolute no one. The smoke is there, loads of debris. There's some blown up cars and a fire in one of the buildings. That's it, nothing else. Very few people running around. And also, there's one guy who's filming while he's running around he goes into the buildings trying to find survivors. He's running around there. There's absolutely no one there. And on some images, you can see that the streets have been shut off in both ends. So the whole area shut off. Also, there are the images, the official images that you see are all taken by the Oslo Fire Brigade. Now, when you see these images and when you know about false flag operations, you will also know that these false flag operations are often carried out by professionals, and they use uniforms to divert attention. You will only see people from the fire brigade. You will not see individuals. You will only see police officers. You will not look at their faces, and so on. This is by design. They do that again and again and again. And here, when the fire brigade finally arrives, all the images are taken from behind. You cannot see the face of these firefighters. And many of them are faded and so on. Also, when one of the first TV teams arrive to the area, they're being told to back off by 3 soldiers in red berets, soldiers in uniforms that have not been identified. They have the MP, signed military police, on their right arm. And what they're doing, they're telling the TV crew to bugger off. And at the same time, they're rolling up a long white cable from the street level. This is just around the corner from where the explosion took off. Before anyone has arrived, before anything has happened, what were they doing there and who were they? These 3 soldiers, or maybe there are 5 of them, there are 2 in the background that I haven't been able to identify. You will later see help so-called wounded people on location. Because with these false flag operations nowadays, some of them are staged events where they have crisis actors appearing as wounded people. I mean, we're talking like major makeup, lots of like in a splatter movie, these type of damage, wounds and so on, but not real things. I would suggest that what we're looking at in Oslo is a staged event with crisis actors, at least some of them. But then when we come to the island, real people were slaughtered there in a very, very brutal way. Then around this whole thing, also from being on location, there's also a female woman that comes out. She's in a uniform that is, this uniform does not exist. It's a mix between a police uniform and a fire brigade uniform, like a light blue shirt with no signs on it. She has a walkie-talkie. She has a name tag around her neck, and she's got dark blue trousers. And she's telling photographers that are coming into the area that they need to back off, they need to stop filming, and so on. Then you have people coming in a crowd with massive damage wounds. One of them is a woman that works for the government. She has like a metal thing, a metal rod sticking out from her head with blood coming down to the sides. I mean, awful thing. Then another one, a woman, her whole face is covered in blood. Very, very thing. And then other people as well with blood in their face. No one is trying to hold the wound itself or stop the bleeding, which is the normal reaction. If you have a cut or anything like that, you would put your hand on it. But these people are very carefully not touching blood, like if it was makeup, I would say. These people are then, due to the fact that the fire brigade that is just next door to this whole government building, by a very unfortunate accident, when the explosion took place, all doors, all carports to the fire brigade were blocked. So no fire car wagons could get out, neither could ambulances. So even though they were that close, nobody could get out. Also, when the fire brigade or whoever they are came to the place, instead of trying to turn out the fire in one of the buildings, they spent a lot of time moving one of the vehicles in the street from one place to the other for no apparent reason. It was not in the way to start with, and no vehicles are coming into the area. But then all of these people that have been so-called wounded, they are then, because there are no ambulances and no fire brigade or no other vehicles, they say that they stopped a normal bus and got all of them on board on this bus, and so the bus could drive them to the hospital. I would say this is one way of getting all of the people involved in an operation out of the area without people being able to look in. If I'm wrong, no disrespect to the people who were wounded or so on. If I'm wrong, I'm very sorry. It's just that I see a totally different picture than the official one. So I feel that I'm obliged to tell my side of the story. Anyway, so when all of these things happened, there were one of the ways that you can see that it's a false flag operation is not by what happens, but what does not happen. You know, it's like everything that normally runs like a oiled engine, smooth and perfect and all of these things, suddenly that goes into absolute standstill and nothing happens until everything is carried out by whoever is carried out. When all of the people involved in the attack has been transported from the area, then the whole thing gets into gear and they go in, look in all the wrong locations and blame it on a patsy, blame it on a patsy, blame it on a patsy. This is if it's a black op or a false flag operation. So if we look at this one, did everything work the way it should or not? Well, I've already said that all the exits from the fire brigade, unfortunately, was blocked, so no vehicles could come out. Then all the ambulances that finally arrived to the place, they were not allowed into the area. Instead, they were placed on a big plaza not so far away in a long, long row. And the fire brigade, when it finally got out, they didn't bring the vehicles into the area. Instead, they were parked in another big open square. That could be explained by them maybe fearing secondary explosives and so on. So fine by that. Anyway, but there is a radio channel that is supposed to be used for all major emergencies. Exactly when this happened, it went totally dead. This also went for the so-called AMIS system that was used for all ambulances to coordinate in situations like this. The system went totally dead. Okay. There was also, due to the holiday season, it was in July, only 3, I repeat, 3 police officials in the Oslo Central Police Station. That is 3. Okay. And 2 others that was supposed to be there were stationed at the US and Israeli embassies. Go figure. Now, before this had happened, a few weeks before this whole thing happened, the police units in Oslo and the areas around it were asked to give in their bulletproof vests, their weapons, and so on. They said that that was just because if they didn't have a daily duty, they needed to get in. So now, suddenly, when this happened, none of them had their equipment in that they needed for this type of situation. Also, to get it out, the rule said that 2 officers in charge needed to be there at the same time. And at this time, these people were on holiday, so they could not get their security system, their weapons, nothing out. Okay. Police helicopters were stranded to save money, even though the Oslo area didn't use anywhere near the assigned budget the year before. I mean, it was several million Norwegian kroner that was not used, and still these were stranded to save money. We will see that these helicopters were extremely needed when this awful thing happened on the island. But when it comes to the helicopters, the crew for the helicopter was given 4 weeks summer holiday extra to save money, so they were anywhere close by to be found. And like I said, the police had already saved the year before 227 million Norwegian kroner. That's $22.7 million in not used money, and still they did not allow these helicopters there. So also when all of this happened, then the internet for the police, the internet connections for the whole police system just went down. It was shut down. They could not use it. So instead of being able to contact everyone, they had to send faxes to each other or use their mobile phones or something like that. So they could not use anything. And also the alarm, the computers where the alarms was on was turned off, totally against the normal rule. I said there was only 4 people in total in central, 4 police officers in total in central Oslo. Please compare to the amount of fighter planes in 9/11, where everybody was sent in all different directions. And the people that were there they couldn't get their equipment and so on. Now, the special unit that was trained for things like this bomb attack they were not told that a bomb had exploded. There were no connection. There was no contact made by them. Instead, they were told to stand down. When these people and other units tried to contact the police central, saying, "We're here, we want to help," they said, "Stand down, stand by," and so on. So I'm just going through a list of things that did not work this day.
Right.
I'm sorry, Alfred, I'm just going on.
No. This is just excellent. I think it's best for you to get out the whole picture, and then we can go back and begin to fine tune and
Yeah.
ask questions. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so when a thing like this happens, a small country like Norway, you would think that they would get out like a national alert, going out saying, "Oh my God," and maybe close the borders or something like that. It took 77 minutes before this alarm went off. I mean, we're only talking about the government building, the whole center of the team of leaders in Norway that has been knocked out. 77 minutes, okay? And it took 2 hours and 36 minutes before the borders were closed. That is plenty of time for anyone who is involved to slowly and in their own time pack their bags, get a nice Coca-Cola and maybe a drink in the bar, get some sandwiches and leave, and they would have been able to get out in that time. Norway is not big. Now, when the awful shooting started on the island, the 911 emergency number went down. It was very hard for many people to get through. It was just engaged, and so also when many of the youngsters on the island, when they were being shot at, they phoned the police and said, please come and help us, and the police said, "No, we're sorry, we don't believe you. Call your parents and get them to call us," which they did. And then when the parents tried to call them, many times they couldn't get through, or they were met by total, nonchalance. Nobody cared or was trying to do anything.
Right, they were stonewalled.
Totally. And when the parents phoned them, I mean, they were like hundreds of parents calling, and the police said, "No, sorry, we don't believe you." Okay. Then the local police, when they needed to get out there, I mean, we're only talking about a major catastrophe. The squadron leader who ran out there was this police district north of Oslo that is very central in this whole operation. It is said that the reason why he couldn't get out and get there in time was because the battery was flat. So he needed to find a battery and these cables to get the car going. Okay, the team for the police helicopters, as soon as they heard these awful things going on, they went and said, we're ready to go. And they had sharp shooters, everything like that. Especially right after the thing happened in the government, they were ready to go and to check the area and so on. They were asked to stand down. Okay, and also when later, when the shooting started at the island, the same team with sharpshooters were ready to go. They could have been there in minutes, and the sharpshooters could have taken them out. They were told to stand down. There was also one police officer on the mainland who, with a sharpshooter rifle, had he had the shooter inside. He had them. He could have taken it out. He was in contact with the police center, and same thing there. He was told to stand down, do not fire. Okay. So the first police officer that came to the island, we're talking like 40-minute drive from north of Oslo, and when the police found out what was going on, they drove like crazy to get there. But at that point, the ferry that you do remember, the ferry only big enough for one vehicle, the leader for the youth, the Social Democrat Youth Party, he had jumped on board on this ferry, and instead, he did not try to help anyone or anything. Instead, he pulled full speed ahead, not towards mainland, but to another area where he rammed the boat on shore so it could not be used by anyone, blocking the possibility for normal people or the special units to get to the island. The island, it's only 600 meters. It takes about 1 minute to go there if you go full speed with a vessel like that. But this was rammed and put on, I don't know what you call it, on land. It was stranded. Okay, so when the first police officers came, they didn't go down to the ferry. Instead they went to a little camping that is just like 800 meters north of where the ferry normally arrives. But when they got there, there were boats there, but they did not use them. Instead, they were only told to stand down and see, let us know what you see. They were not allowed to try and get to the island and so on. And please understand that in the meantime, every minute that passes, people, young teenagers from the age of 14 to 17, most of them, were slaughtered, absolutely slaughtered. There are witnesses talking about up to 5 different people in police uniforms with very heavy weapons, blowing them away, executing them one by one, shooting them.
Yeah, so this was not a single shooter. There were 5 police shooters on the island that were executing the up to 69 use of the Social Democrat use. Is that what you're saying?
The info saying 5 police officers was given by the daughter to one of the police chiefs in Oslo. She said there are 5 shooters dressed in police uniforms, and they have also put explosives in the trees around on the island. I know for sure. I have testimonies from witnesses who talked about 3 shooters, and there's several talking about 2 shooters. Now, anyone who has spoken about more than 1 shooter, as far as I know, have been harassed and not believed, and some of them have decided to leave Norway, and they're no longer there. They do not want to answer any questions and so on. But
right. Now I understand. In fact, you contacted me, and we spoke to each other because you were warned to get off the island of Utoya by what you call the Delta Force officer. What exactly is Delta Force, and how did they warn you?
I would like to get back to the warning later on, but
okay,
the whole team that was sent out to take out this guy was like a SWAT team, like a special ops unit, and they go under the name in Norway as Delta. And Delta Force might be a wrong wording, but they're called Delta. And there were 5 different Delta units. They were there in Oslo at the bombing, but they were also the ones that were sent to the island to take out this guy. We're talking about these people in black uniforms, black helmets, SWAT team, that type of thing. But when they came, I mean, these are highly trained for these type of things. And also there was a drill on this island not long before this happened.
Right.
When they arrived, they passed the ferry without seeing it. It is not a big road. It's easy to do that. But they passed it, and they went to the camping site just north of it. But instead of taking one of the boats there, because there were several boats, private boats, and go towards the island, because they could have been there within a minute to take up the fight with this guy. Instead, they were officially told to go north about 4 kilometers, which they did. Then they put down one of their rubber boats, the fire brigade's rubber boat, in the water. And they got in. I think there were about 10 of these special ops people in it, with all the armor, with all the weapons. And so it was so heavy that when they took off, and by the way, they took off towards the wrong island. I mean, you could hear the shooting, and still they went to the wrong island. But on the way there, since they were so heavily loaded, they were standing up in this rubber boat. It's like Monty Python. You can't even make it up. It looks totally ridiculous. They were standing up, and it started taking in water, and then the water got into the engine, so the engine stopped. So these special ops had to be rescued by a normal boat who came. And said, so this normal boat, they changed places so that the two people in the boat went into the rubber boat, and the rest of the SWAT team went in the boat and then took off to the island. But did they go full speed? No, they went towards the island because of the risk of being shot at or something like that. I do not know why. But in the meantime, when these children were being slaughtered, they were calling in to the police, and the police said, don't worry, the police will be here. They're on the way in cars, boats, helicopters, and so on. None arrived. Absolutely no one arrived. And when the police finally arrived, they were standing in a whole long line on the mainland, not trying to get out to the island. Instead, normal people took their boats and so on, trying to get out to the island and saving these children that they were trying. Some of them was trying to swim across, but was being killed there as well. So, and also the police, when they finally arrived to the camping, they didn't try to get a boat either. It's like, and one police patrol that came from another city called Drammen, they were told, just bypass the island. Do not go there. Go to the next big island. And the next big island, there were helicopters landing there instead of going towards the island. It's like, I don't know, but don't you think there's something majorly wrong here?
Well, it seems like it's intentionally caused chaos as part of the false flag operation, clearly.
There you go. That is absolutely my interpretation as well. And it said that this special ops, they were told that there were no boats at the camping. I mean, they only had to get out of the car, walk 50 meters. There would have been a whole long line of boats there.
Right.
It's unreal. It is unreal when you think of it, that these that at the same time these young people were being slaughtered, absolutely slaughtered. And also before this whole thing happened, 40 minutes before the shooting started, the helicopter team were being warned about an upcoming terror event, and still nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. And the military as well, and the Home Guard, when they heard about these things, they said, we're here, use us to whatever. It took 6 hours before they were called in. They were told to stand down, and stand down. It is unreal. But then, did I say that they put the rubber boat in 4 kilometers north? It's 8.5 kilometers.
Right.
8.5 kilometers. Every single meter, and people are getting killed at the island.
Right.
Okay. So there were in action after 6 helicopters afterwards, 5 from the defense unit, and so on. All of them, the hour after the terror attack, they were there. All of them. Boom, 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 boom. But during it, absolutely none. Except 2 black helicopters, unidentified but being filmed. Then also there was another helicopter that was circling, being shot at. They took some footage, but not so much. And this was a press helicopter, and they filmed the shooter. The guy that they filmed was a southpaw. He was a left-handed shooter. he had a bald patch on the top of his head, and the guy who's now in prison for it, no bald area on his head, and right-handed. Also, right after they had arrested the guy, his Facebook page was updated with a whole long manifest that now people are looking so much into, not understanding that it's a total red herring. And also, it is more or less identical to the so-called Unabomber, his manifest. It is copy-paste, and then they've just taken a few things and changed to it. So it is, what was his name? The guy.
Right. So
and that was updated after he was under arrest. After he was under arrest. So how is that possible? Because it's a false flag black op where all of these things, the timeline is not working perfectly and so on. And while this guy was walking around killing people on the island, he called the police several times. And he says, "Hello, my name is Commodore Anders Behring Breivik in the Norwegian anti-communist resistance movement. I am at Utøya at the moment. I have accomplished my mission, and I would like to surrender. I would like to surrender." And then they say, they're very lame. They say, "Okay, so what number are you calling from?" "I'm calling from a mobile." And then this whole thing, this whole conversation is just noted. It's not brought forward in any way. It's only after the whole thing happened that they said, "Oh my God, he called to surrender," and so on. And it says that they couldn't find the number to his mobile, and he said he must have called from a phone without a SIM card. I mean, what are the chances? Also, many of the calls, when the police that was, I would say, not involved in the black op, when they tried to get in touch with their central and so on, they say that there was a phone relay that was out of order and was directing the calls to the wrong numbers.
Right.
It's and then when finally the survivors at the island were saved and so on, the people from the ambulances was kept away by police instead of bringing them there, and they would say, "No, there could be a bomb nearby. You can't go there. You cannot do this," and so on. And the ammo that is used for this, it's a very, very brutal ammo. It's called silver tip, and it's not only hollow point, but it on impact it spreads out like a pineapple, and then rotates, so it inflicts incredible damage, and it's not allowed to be sold to civilians nor military. It's only used by the CIA and Mossad in special ops. Also, in the whole court was accounted for was the rate of hitting. He was shooting automatic fire and so on. Normally, if you walk around and just shoots on moving targets, not so easy. But here, I think the hitting target rate was like 87% or something like that, extremely high. And none, as far as I know, of the projectiles that missed the targets was ever accounted for. I would say why? Because they don't want to show what type of ammo was used. And also, if he had been the only shooter, he wouldn't even have been able to carry around that much ammo. It would have been too heavy for him. And the photos of him does not show that. Also, the photo of the guy the helicopter took, the guy that is shooting the southpaw, the uniform he has on and the uniform that is brought forward as evidence in the court case is not the same uniform as Breivik was arrested in, because he was arrested in what looks like a wetsuit with a police emblem on his left shoulder and so on. And when you look at the photos taken of the guy who was arrested, he looks a bit like Breivik, but I would say not the same person. They have very different facial structures and so on.
Right.
And it just goes on and on and on.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. Yeah. So you've really gone and you've really documented all of the discrepancies that show that this was not an authentic event, but in fact it was a state military terror attack upon civilians for political outcome, normally called a false flag. But I mean, when you have 2 to 5 police shooters mowing down 69 youths at a summer camp, and those were not crisis actors and false deaths with blood, those were real deaths.
Yeah.
And it was the Norwegian Special Ops Police that did it. Now, I have a whole bunch of questions.
No, I would say that the last thing, not correct. I think who carried it out was Special Ops, but not Norwegian. We're talking on a totally different level, but with the assist of Norwegian people. Also, I forgot to tell you, when the Delta team finally arrived to the island, instead of having a shootout with Anders Breivik, they called him by name, and right away he just put down the gun, standing waiting for him to be arrested.
Right.
Very odd behavior. Well, very, very odd behavior.
Yeah,
but
if he was being instructed to do so, then that's what he would do.
Exactly, and especially if we're talking mind control, patsy.
Exactly.
So I would suggest that we're looking upon something not the official story, that the official story is absolute a lie, and that a major event is taking place here. I think I can say that without exaggerating.
Right.
So, in critical or crucial in the Norwegian part of this operation, I would say, is the so-called Delta teams, the Norwegian ones, that were very central in near the bomb explosion, and that was very central in delaying either, I mean, they're the worst amateurs ever, or they were doing this to delay so that the whole thing could be carried out. I would strongly suggest the last thing. Anyway, so back to my story, my days in Oslo. After we had gone around and spent half a day around where the bomb exploded, or I don't know, I don't think it was a bomb. I think we're talking some kind of high-tech weapon in the neighborhood of the same kind of technology used at 9/11. This was not normal explosive. It was absolutely not a fertilizer bomb. Absolute not true. The damages were very strange. It's the only thing that was damaged really was glass, and the glass in many buildings around Oslo, in the center of Oslo, was pulled out. It was sucked out. So the glass was on the outside of the buildings. Instead of when there's a bomb blast, it is blown into the buildings. Here, all the glass is on the outside. And also, very few people are talking about the sound of an explosion. It's more like a roar or no sound at all. There's, I know there's one video you can find on YouTube. Somebody is walking around filming in the streets of Oslo, and suddenly you just hear a lot of glass falling, and you see the people in the street. No one is taking cover or being shocked. They're just looking, and then they move the camera towards the government building, and you see this smoke starting to come up over the ceilings, the rooftops. So I think, a very, very strange event.
Right.
Anyway, so the day after, I asked this new friend of mine, this journalist, Hans Gårder, if he would mind taking me to Utøya. This was the day before the anniversary. And even though he's written a lot about this, he's never been there himself. So he said, yeah, for sure, I'll be happy to. And so he's a funny guy because he's the, what do you call it, like the anti-hero type of thing. You know, he does not look like James Bond. He's like, he had a cap, but he hadn't really shaved, big glasses. And when we met him, we met him at this camping, and he was sitting with a big bowl of pasta, chewing away because he hadn't had lunch. Big bowl with the plastic still on it from the day before, and he's just found it in the fridge and so on. So the whole thing that is now going to happen, he was still chewing away on this pasta. Anyway, so we came to the camping where loads and loads of these youngsters were saved by normal people. The police was not there, the ambulance, no one else was doing anything, only tourists that was on site and so on. And they were saved to this camping site. So we went there, and our intention was to get to the island. So on the outside, there was this little cafeteria, you know, like with a tourist shop and information, and they rented out motorboats and canoes. So we went there, and there was this young woman in the entrance or in the shop, and we said, "Excuse me, but do you know if the ferry leaves as usual, or what the times are?" And she reacted a little odd, I thought. She looked a bit nervous, and she said, "I'm not sure. I don't think the ferry is working today because of the anniversary tomorrow." So we said, "Okay, fine. In that case, can we rent a motorboat?" Then she said, "I'm sorry, but the man who has the license is not here. And for me, the license for what? We just want to rent a motorboat to go to the island." So I said, "Okay, but then can we rent a canoe or 2 canoes?" We were actually 4 people. There were 2 of my new friends from Oslo that really had nothing to do with this, and then Hans Gårder, the journalist, and myself. And she said, yes, because the canoes were right outside the door, so she couldn't really deny that. She said, yes, but when? I said, now would be a good time. And so she said, oh, okay. And she gave me a paper to fill out. I started filling in my name and so on. In the meantime, my friend had gone to use the bathroom. And when he came back, he started talking to another girl who was working, doing the dishes and so on. And she said something totally different. She said, yeah, the ferry is working just like usual, and no problem to get there. Still running. Let's forget about the canoes. We go there. If it's not running, we'll come back and we rent the canoes. Great. So we took the car. My friend was with a pasta bowl in his lap. We drove to this little place where the ferry started from and so on. And this infamous ferry that was put on land, and part of this whole drama was there. It's a small little parking. I think maybe you can in total maximum get maybe 50 cars there if you really cram the whole place up, but very small. And when we got down there, there was no people at all. This is way out in the countryside. But there were some vehicles parked there that I found, at least I took some photos of it. I think there was 1 ambulance, 1 police car, 2 official health cars, another vehicle that looked official, and so on. And then next to this tiny little ferry, there was a brown boat, that looks a bit like these tourist boats that goes in the canals of Amsterdam and Copenhagen and so on. And then there was a little like a mini party tent where there were 2 Red Cross people sitting just on chairs. They were just sitting there doing nothing. And on the island on the other side, there was a similar tent near where the ferry would anchor. Anyway, so we went up to these two people and we asked, excuse me, but do you know when the ferry leaves for the island? And he then said, the last ferry will leave the island at 6:15, which I thought was a bit of an odd answer because I wanted to go to the island, not come back. And so I said, but when is it leaving? When is the next one leaving? And he sort of answered a bit avoidingly. He said, they're coming and going all day. So I thought, great. At the same time, I thought it was a bit odd because, I mean, the ferry was there and there was like a wire or something like that blocking the entrance to it. So I didn't know what boat he was talking about. Anyway, so we were standing there and we decided to wait. So we waited maybe 15 minutes or something. And then suddenly out of this wooden tourist boat, this flat brown boat that was next to the ferry, 3 youngsters came out running in like wetsuits with headsets and stuff, jumped into one of these fast military looking, not military looking, but very fast rubber boats where you can stand up. I think it had twin engines behind it and so on, and just took off full speed towards the island. So I thought, excellent, started filming it because I thought then I can time exactly how long it takes from the mainland to the island if you really want to get there in a hurry. It took more or less exactly 1 minute. Then the boat was there for maybe 30 seconds or something, turned around and came back full speed in towards mainland. So we thought that maybe somebody had a heart attack or some kind of emergency happened or something like that. And then the boat came, I turned around, and 2 police officers jumped out of it and started running towards us. And so I told my friends, we're getting a visit. They didn't believe me because they thought that they were just going to run to the police van and take off. But no. They came. It was a female officer. The man, maybe 32, something like that. Very well built, military looking guy, but in a Norwegian police uniform, armed, which they just recently started being armed. And they said politely but very strict, hello, we would like to see your ID. And in my world, when you are obliged to show ID to the police for no apparent reason, these are the first signs of a police state, and I do not approve of that. So my friend, the journalist, he was still eating the pasta salad, and he said, "But on what grounds do you want to see our ID? I mean, we're only here standing waiting for the ferry. It's in a public place. Why should we have to show it?" And the guy said, "Listen, I'm not here to argue. Just show me your ID." But he kept on, "But why? Are we suspected of anything? Do you think we're terrorists or why?" So the police officer said, "You, I," and then we go over there. Very sort of commanding. "You, I, over there." So he went some 5-10 meters to the side with this guy who was still eating the pasta salad, while he told his female colleague to check the 3 of us out. So my 2 friends who are not used to these type of situations and had nothing to do with it, they showed their ID. I had my passport in my pocket, but I just thought I'm not going to show it to you just out of principle. So I told her my name, and I also gave my insurance card, Spanish insurance card, just to not get my friends in trouble, because I mean they had nothing to do with it. Anyway, she wrote down our names and so on. The other police officer came back, took the paper and went aside, calling the headquarters, something like that. And then like a minute later, he came back, he stood right in front of me, looked me in the eyes, and he said, "Ole Dammegard, I've checked, Norwegian and Danish police have nothing on you, but you are not welcome here. You're not welcome here today or tomorrow. And you're free to leave the premises on your own, or we will escort you." And so, I mean, sometimes I get afraid. This time I did not. So I was just very calmly looking into his eyes, seeing, who are you? What is your role in this whole thing? And he said, "We are aware of that you've given a speech and that you have looked into different assassination, claiming that they're connected. These type of opinions are free for anyone to have, but they're not welcome at this place now. In one way, I can totally respect, since there was an anniversary for the family members the very next day, that they did not want during the ceremony that suddenly some crazy conspiracy theorist would stand up with a bullhorn screaming about the false flag operation. I can totally respect that. At the same time, we are a free country and open space. So I said, okay, but at the same time, I would very much like for you to consider informing yourself about what actually happened on this island, and also see if what I believe is true, what happened out there, then see what it is you are protecting from people like myself. That was like, Stonewall, absolutely. It did not hit home at all. Anyway, so my friend with the pasta bowl, he said, but now we told you our names, why don't you tell me yours? And the police officer said, absolutely not. Then my friend said, but how about if we take a photo together? And he was almost taking a step forward to take like a selfie of the two of them. And the police officer just backed off and said, absolutely not. The only thing I can give you is my service number. And the number he gave me was Delta 31.
Oh.
I do not know if Delta 031 is a normal service number for police officers. But since Delta and the Delta units were so central in this whole operation, I felt I am standing right in front of one of the people that might have been involved in this operation and is now there to see to it that nobody gets too close to the truth. Anyway, so we said, okay, fine, and we left the area. We did not leave as he ordered us to. Instead, we went back to the camping, where I'm not a religious person, but I was sitting there on the beach with my fingers and my hand in the water, feeling the coolness of this water that these people had been swimming in, trying to save their lives, being slaughtered, brutally murdered exactly 4 years ago. And I tell you, I could feel the pain of all these families. I could almost hear the shooting and the screaming. It was just an awful thing in such a beautiful surrounding. So it was a very emotional thing for me to go through. And then I continued. I did my tour in Sweden. I did a guided. I did 5 guided tours around the site of the murder where the Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme is said to have been murdered in central Stockholm, 1986. I did 5 guided tours there, and then I came back home. I mean, I'm doing everything I can to expose these things so that normal people will understand what is actually happening.
Right.
And then now I would like to take you in a different direction because I think that this has led to another level. And about a couple of years ago, I was on a panel of experts for, I think it was Project Camelot. And one of the other people there were a former member of Special Ops, the American Special Ops. He was also what do you call it, ghostwriter, very successful ghostwriter and so on. Very nice man. I liked him a lot. And after this thing, I was contacted by him and we became friends. At that time, he was stationed in South Africa. And for me, South Africa was very interesting because it is very central in the killing of the Swedish Prime Minister. Parts of the team of the assassins were from South Africa and so on. And he's never ever made a secret out of him being part of Special Ops. And he also quite recently said that he had moved to Miami doing some extra works for Special Ops. But he said, not all of these guys are bad guys or operations are bad things. You know, some of them are good. And I mean, like I say, I really like this guy. And then I think 2 or 3 months ago, he said he's the editor of a book publishing company, American one. And since I tried to get my book Coup d'etat in slow motion uh, published for many, many years and just been stonewalled everywhere, this, except there was another American publisher a few years ago that wanted to publish it, and then just a few days before it went to print, due to technical issues, they backed out. I don't know what technical issues that was. Maybe they ran out of print or color, ink, whatever. But so when he offered this, I said, great. I mean, this guy being a ghostwriter, who would be a better one to do it with? So we've been on and off sorting out the contract and everything. And then he was very eager to sign the contract and so on. And we went through 2 chapters. And the first chapter he went through was the foreword. And one of the things he did was to change some very, very important things, like really important things, like, for instance, the prime minister was shot with one shot, and then the shooter aimed and shot at his wife but missed her. But what this person changed the text to was that both of them had been shot and so on. And I told him, please, you have to be very aware of careful not to change anything, because this is a massive so, and you don't know if you take away important pieces of the puzzle and so on. So please be aware and don't change anything. Just fix the language or grammar or whatever is needed. And he said, yeah, no problem at all. Then a few days, or when I got back from Norway, I signed my part of the contract, this book publishing contract, and sent it to him, waiting for him to sign it. But he delayed it. He was out of office and said, I'll get back to you first week of August. But then he said, how is Norway? And I told him very briefly this story, and that I had been told to bugger off by a member of the Delta Force. And then he said to me, how do you know? How did you know that he was Delta Force? Did you get the man's name who asked you to leave? And he said, Delta Force go unmarked, no identifying patches. I described exactly. He was dressed as an armed police officer. He refused to give his name and let us take his photo, but he also only gave his service number, Delta 031. And then I said, I'm going to go and give interviews like this one in great detail, talking about the thing. Then I got this email from him. Dear Ole, service numbers are never given out. Delta 031 wasn't even a call sign, which are also never given out. He gave this number to throw people off. It means nothing operationally. I would not label this person as Delta Force, because these guys operate in the background and you cannot distinguish them from other armed men. Delta Force refers to members of the U.S. Army Special Forces Unit, Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, SFOD-D. They would never talk to anyone on site, even if you could see them. And then he added these lines. There are kill teams well above SFOD-D that operate in the dark and light. If I can actually not see them, I'm careful to label their presence. Cheers. Now, when I read this, I just got cold chills down my spine, because how can he say Delta 031 wasn't even a call sign if he's not aware of the operation? Because Delta 04 and Delta 05 and so on were part of this operation. How can he say that Delta 031 wasn't even a call sign? That, in my world, I felt he just made a blunder. He, without knowing it, told me that he is aware of this operation to some extent. And also, after that, why does he even mention kill teams well above these Delta teams that operate in the dark and light, whatever that means. And when he says, if I cannot actually see them, I am careful to label their presence. I spoke to Professor Jim Fetzer, who's a former Marine. I spoke to St. Gardner, who's been looking into many of these false flags and so on, and asked him, am I understanding the English language correctly, or am I seeing things that are not there? Both of them said, we believe you're accurate in your analysis. And I feel that that was either a friendly warning to back off, don't get your foot in too deep, or a direct threat, but hidden. So anyway, I felt this man, I'm not sure who he is anymore. The man that I thought was my friend, after this email, I feel maybe he was put there as a controller, you know, to get me as close as possible and also to hijack my book. So I want to get out before he signed his part of the contract. So I asked Jim Fetzer to help me put together a few lines. I put together some very nice letters saying, due to some personal issues, I'm very sorry, but I need to pull out. And I'm very grateful for any assistance and help along the way. I hope maybe I can ask your advice in the future, but I need to step out of this deal that we almost went into. Now, if he was the guy that he appeared to be before, who was so eager to get this published and who was, you know, he was telling me, oh my God, this is the best. It's such a masterpiece. It's an incredible, it needs to get out there. If he was that person, I would expect him to say, listen, I'm very confused from your email. Why on earth would you want to pull out? Let's see if we can find a way to get to an understanding, and let's do this. Instead, I got an email where it just said, sounds good. That's it.
Yeah.
And well, after that,
sure. Well,
after that, also, when I send out my newsletter, I have my, for some people that get freebies, and he right away unsubscribed. Also on another website that I helped him to get into, where he was supposed to sell his books, and there was a film interview with him. When I went to see what the description of him was, because I just wanted to make sure of his background, all of that had been deleted as well. He had contacted this man who was in charge of the website and asked him to delete everything. So I'm just putting this out there, because if it's a threat, for one thing, I do not like being threatened. At the same time, also, should anything happen to me, I'm not suicidal. My car is in excellent condition. I've had a checkup. My heart is fine. I have no intention to leave this earth. Or should anything happen to any of my friends, family, people close to me, then please refer to this email and see this is what is behind it.
Right.
So my intention is to get it on tape and put it out there.
Yeah. Well, you've certainly put it out, and our mutual colleague, Professor Jim Fetzer, has vetted your correspondence and knows who that person is, and that person's behavior does not sound like he's a member of the Truth Movement. I'll tell you that. And but we can certainly talk afterward, because your book is a classic, and if you want to get that book out, I have some potentially valuable suggestions and avenues for you that we can talk about off camera after the interview, that I like to share with you. But I'm not quite sure where we are. Sorry?
As long as they're not part of special ops or anything.
No.
I've had enough.
This is more in you starting your own publishing company, which I can show you how to do. Now,
I know that, but I'm not interested. Thank you, because I need somebody with muscles to get it out there. I've self-published other books, and it's
but let's not take up the time now. on that.
For sure.
I just want to show you a way that you can do that and get large sales and get people to go and get it. Okay, and you don't have to do anything. As they say, you don't touch the product. I have a bunch of questions, but I don't know where you are in your narrative. So you tell me.
No, I'm quite ready. Fire away and let's see if I can answer.
Sure. And this is so that let's go back to the basic five W's here, and two of the 5 W's are who and why. Okay, and you yourself brought up who is behind this and why. And I was just looking up one of the contemporary blogs back then, Sunday, July 24th, 2011. This is whitetv.se, which is our mutual friends at UCATCH, Magnus Olsen and Henning Vita. That's how you and I met. I think I first met your brother, who's a friend of Magnus, and your brother was kind enough to make an introduction to you, for which I'm very, very grateful. And so here is Henning Vita, and their whole thing is just focusing on the mind control aspect. And so he says, the Norwegian Social Democrats plan to acknowledge Palestine as an independent state. The Norwegian Secretary of State Jonas Gahr Store demanded at the summer camp that Israel has to pull down its wall and end the illegal occupation. So here, the Norwegian Secretary of State went out to the summer camp, which was youths who were coming out up in the Social Democrat Party. It's like people who were young Democrats or young new Democratic Party people here in Canada. So they're out of, they're party activists. They're like, I don't know, were they like 18 years old or 14 or something
14
like that,
to
right?
18, most of them.
Yeah. And, the Norwegian Secretary of State comes out and he says, yeah, well, we're moving forward and Israel has to pull down its wall and end the illegal occupation. And this is at that summer camp. And guess what happened? A few days later. So
I tell you, there are several things like that. I would say, if we look upon this from a broader angle, I would very much suggest that we're looking at special ops. I would suggest that the CIA, Mossad, MI6 are normally involved in these type of things, connected with NATO and the elite, the so-called elite. The same people as are behind the New World Order.
Right.
The key players around this awful atrocity were Bilderbergers. Okay, you have the former Prime Minister Gro Harlem Brundtland. She is a Bilderberger, but she is way up there. She is one of the architects, together with Maurice Strong, behind Agenda 21. And anyone who's read Agenda 21, it's like, oh my God, the level of madness behind these plans. I mean, it's the darkest of the darkest of the dark future for us. Anyway, she were, for many years, together with the current Prime Minister in Norway, the former Prime Minister, Jens Stoltenberg. Jens Stoltenberg, also a Bilderberger, and the son of Thorvald Stoltenberg, who is a Bilderberger. And this morning, before this whole shooting happened, Gro Harlem Brundtland went to Utøya and visited these youngsters. She was there the whole day until just about an hour before the shooting started. Then she left the island. Okay.
Wow.
When you look at some of these mass shootings and mass killings, there are this ritualistic, awful ingredients in it that I cannot not see in this. It feels to me that that was some almost like a ritualistic sacrifice of these young lives. Okay, then you have the guy who
Yeah, go ahead.
then you have the guy who jumped on board and took the ferry and ran it on shore. His name is Eskil Pedersen, and he is the one that took over as the head of the youth party for the Social Democrat. The one that was before him some years earlier was Jens Stoltenberg, the prime minister. Okay, so he was in the exact same position. And according to my Norwegian journalist, it seems like this Eskil Pedersen, who so cowardly took off from the island and sabotaged the ferry, is the illegitimate son of Jens Stoltenberg. So we're looking at Bilderbergers, 3 generations. I'm not sure about if Eskil has been a Bilderberger yet, but it's just a matter of time. And at the time of the bomb, please remember the bomb exploded at 3:30 in the afternoon. The mass shooting started around 5:25, so there's a certain time difference. When the bomb went off in Oslo, the news, the national TV went live with the whole event, and I used to work for Swedish TV to make music for them. And so I've been in the graphic department many times, sitting there, just learning and watching. And I know that when a thing like this, an emergency or something happens like that, the people in the graphic department, they get the instructions. Oh, okay, we're getting this prime minister live, so please get an image of him. Then you have the live images in the background. And then from wherever location it is coming live, you just put live from Vancouver, live from Paris, live from whatever. And after this thing happened in Oslo, the prime minister, he was officially on secret location in Oslo, okay? And he went into hiding. Nobody really saw him when these things happened. But then about half an hour after it happened, way before the shooting started on Utøya, way before anyone had even thought of Utøya or that anything would happen there, they get the TV2, I think it was TV2 in Norway, get the prime minister on the phone. And you have the normal thing, a photo of him. You got the live thing with smoke and the building blown up in the background, live thing. And then they interview him and say, so what do you say? And he said, I have no idea what's happened. We're still looking into it. We don't know if it's a terror attack but we're there for the families of the victims. We are there with their hearts and so on. But we still need to look into what's actually happened. While he's talking, up in the left corner, it says, live at Utøya. Live at Utøya. I think this is a massive smoking gun saying that he was on the island just before the shooting had started. Right. Also, surrounding this whole thing of the mass shooting on the island, I mean, this police officer just walks around on the island from one end to the other and just kills people everywhere he sees them. But as far as I've been able to find out, there was no people shot or killed in the main building, the biggest one, which would be the one to run and hide in. They ran to all the other in all different directions. No, I'm not sure about this. I need to look more into the case. But as far as I know, nobody was shot inside that building. My question is that where the whole operation was operated from? Is that where, because there was also a vehicle on the island that day, a rental car, that it said from time to time that Breivik, it was his car, but he went on or whoever went on the ferry going out to the island was without a car. How did the car get out there? What was it doing?
Right.
So I would very, and then after this whole event, Jens Stoltenberg, the prime minister, he was appointed chief of NATO. And one of his tasks, or the things that he's been going out saying officially that he wants to, is deconstruct NATO to put it into its grave. I would very much suggest that if you look at the New World Order agenda, what they want to try to, they want to create a world army. So they want to get rid of NATO and the UN troops and put them together into one world army used against us, not to defend us, used to control us. And I think this is part of it. And also, as far as I know, Norway became an honorary member of NATO after this happened. Just a little bit.
Right. Now,
do you think?
Yeah.
Don't you think there's a massive smell around this whole thing?
Oh, listen, I am. Yeah. To me, for me, I think that you've presented the prima facie evidence that this was a massive false flag operation, which was a precision false flag operation at the world level. I just want to ask a question. You're satisfied that this was not another Sandy Hill and that all the children were killed? Are you satisfied?
Alfred, in these cases, you never know. I mean, really, it's such confusing times, because also for a long time, I think the first 2 days, the number of dead on the island was 86, and then it turned around to 69. And then two of the children were told their parents were told that their children had drowned. Then when they received the bodies, there were bullet holes in them, and they say, "Oh, it's very sorry, we didn't see them."
So there's
is that to get the numbers to 77, because they're really into these? So now there's officially 77 dead. Is that what they're up to? What is going on here? There's something very odd and sick around the whole thing.
Exactly. It does look like a false flag operation. Norway is a New World Order center. We know that because there's separate evidence, 2 different cases, that the Tromsø, Norway heart facility has been used to do the Fukushima false flag event. Secondly, in November 2009, the Tromsø, Norway heart facility was did the Norway spiral the night before Barack Obama's Nobel Peace Prize speech in Oslo, in which he used war throughout the whole Peace Prize. So it's a typical New World Order reversal. Barack Obama is an agent of the New World Order, and that's the way, that's what he's acting right now. Okay, so, but I'd like to go back, because you're saying that this was a ritualistic sacrifice, which goes back to the Bilderbergers, as you've shown that the Bilderbergers meeting in Stockholm was built around ritualistic sacrifice. Isn't that true? That interview that, I mean,
no, Copenhagen,
not in Copenhagen. Yeah.
It's I can only say what I see. I cannot prove it. I can just point out things that for me looks like that, and for me to see how this was carried out, and also how Gro Harlem Brundtland afterwards she was not available. She did nothing until in the evening and so on. They said that she's just sat there watching TV, as far as I know.
Yeah. Now I just want to get this person. You said that she went out an hour before the shooting started at the island.
She left the island.
Yeah, she left the island on
She,
July 22nd, that
yeah,
Friday.
she,
Yeah. Now, could you give me her name and her position again?
Gro, Gro, Gro Harlem Brundtland, Brundtland, Brundtland. She is a major player. She's a very very nice woman, apparently. I mean, she's very sympathetic and so on. But when you look at her actions, once again, it's just unreal. And she's called like the land mother of Norway. She's looked upon as an icon. And but she
And she's a member of the Social Democrat Party.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
And
so and is
when
yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
When I'm not totally sure about the details here, but as far as I know, in 1994, when Norway was standing and had an election about the European Union or not in front of them, she, a few weeks or a month before it, just signed Norway into it. And then they had this, she signed the papers, and then they had the election in Norway, which was absolutely against it, as far as I remember. But Norway was still, they were already in. I mean, we're talking total betrayal.
Yeah, so she sounds like a New World Order agent. Now,
totally.
Yeah, now this fellow, Norwegian Secretary of State, Jonas Gahr Støre, is he a member of the Social Democrats?
I do not know, but he is mentioned many times around this whole thing.
Yeah, he was there at the summer camp demanding for Israel to pull down the wall and end the illegal occupation. You see, I'm trying to figure out if this whole thing was a setup whereby you have mind control assets at the top of the Social Democrats that put out these positions like, bring down the wall, and then they split and they leave the island, and then they bring in the Manchurian Candidate. They bring in the 2 to 5 police shooters with special Mossad CIA bullets, and they mow down however many it is, 69, 86, and but everybody's in on it. They're all Satanists, they're all Bilderbergers, and it's just one more show. But these assets at the top of the Social Democrats are all part of it as well. I'm just trying to get to that.
I think handpicked people are, that is my we're talking handpicked. It's like in all these operations, it's totally compartmentalized on a need-to-know basis, where most people have absolutely no idea. But some key people, like Gro Harlem, like Jens Stoltenberg, like Eskil Pedersen, the illegitimate son, that is what I've been told that he is, are key in this.
Yeah.
But also, my Norwegian friend, the journalist, he says that island was infamous for being used for mind control to prepare future generations of social democrats to get prepared for this whole thing. Because it's so odd, Alfred. Why, when I gave a speech about these things, why were there not so many parents, distraught parents to these killed children? Why were they not there? Why are they not asking questions? What happened to my child? Why are you not looking into it? Why only this one way version, the Patsy, or Breivik, 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 Breivik. It's nonstop. They repeat it on a weekly basis. There's something about this event. And at the same time, this monument of death and destruction right in the center of Oslo. It's very odd.
Yeah. So they're still using it as a social meme, as a social mind control and brainwashing meme in the center of Oslo, so that the Norwegian population itself be frozen in fear and not take any kind of an action to move out of NATO or, to think independently.
And also one of the tactics they use is kill your friends to gain sympathy. Kill your own ones. This is an old Roman tactic, No, but how can you even suspect me? Look, it was my friends who got killed.
Yeah.
Here, it was their children sacrificed. I just want to point out also that the absolute first person that was killed was a man who was connected to the royal family. I think he was a half brother or something like that.
Oh.
He was the first person executed there with a headshot. Boom, boom. He and the female leader for this camp, they were shot with headshot. Boom, boom. And so around the royal Norwegian family, you also have these connections with Freemasonry, with Bilderbergers and so on. And Anders Breivik's father himself is a high top Freemason who was together with other people in NATO and different connections, Freemasons and so on. Very, very odd connections around that. So
this is the Patsy's father.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
but if you look at
go ahead.
No, but it's almost like when we talk about sacrifices, it's almost like his son is being sacrificed as well in this whole macabre, whatever it was. But like Obama said, from time to time we need to twist the arms of some countries. I think this was a way of twisting the arm of some countries.
Yeah,
and just like also that this man Jonas, I forgot his name, who seems to be very central around these things as well. Him talking about Palestine just a day or so before could very well be a diversion, saying, okay, this was what happened. But actually, it was a totally different operation.
Right, exactly. Another red herring to divert attention away from the Social Democrats as being implicit or complicit in their top mind-controlled or, part of the network at the top.
But also by doing such a thing, you're the defender of the weak, the Palestinian. So how can you even suspect me? I was standing up. I was fighting for them, and then you how can you even point a finger at me? It's not the first time these things have happened. And I think it's important to take that into consideration as well.
Now, just for the record, I'd like to ask you, because all of these inconsistencies would normally come out in official investigations and inquiries and court processes. Say if the parents brought lawsuits, parents would say, well, I'm bringing a lawsuit for negligence. Do you know if there's been any of that?
As far as I know, absolutely nothing has happened. I think there was an official commission that looked into it, but when it comes to false flags, the investigation is part of the crime. It is the inside job that is there only to cover it up, and that is followed by commissions with their only task is to drag it out, construct thousands of documents that says absolutely nothing, and then bore people to tears so that they're fed up with the whole case and will just leave it. And if that commission, that is also part of the crime, if that commission is not successful in shutting people up, then they will just add another commission that will look into the commission. And then it's like in the Olof Palme assassination, there were almost four commissions looking into it. And in the end, people are just, they can't be bothered.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I just want to ask you this. I was informally on a number of occasions contacted by someone who was connected to some of the family members. There was a horrific ferry accident in Korea where 100 and some odd youths' lives were lost in this ferry. And a number of the parents began to think that it was a false flag operation, that it wasn't just negligence, it was a false flag operation. And they contacted me, this man, for advice to see if the parents could form a tribunal, because the Korean government was covering it up in the same way that the Norwegian government has covered this up. And so the Korean parents, through this gentleman, contacted me for advice, because we had been part of the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal, Citizens Tribunal, to put together a parents' tribunal that they would control to investigate whether or not that was a false flag operation. And this went on for a while, and then it got subsumed into the politics in Korea of the investigation, and I haven't heard back from them. But let's go over to Norway. Do you mean that of the 67 or 86 parents, pairs of parents, there haven't been any parents who were skeptical that their sons got murdered in a false flag or some suspicious circumstances? I mean, that's hard to believe.
I can only say what I know. As far as I know, nothing. And also sometimes when you hear filmed interviews with the parents, they're almost smiling. There's no real emotion. And that really warns me of that there's something odd going on. But if what my journalist friend in Norway suggested, that this island has been used for mind control, then that would also explain why the parents react the way they do. And I was told one thing, I'm not sure if it was true or not, but that one mother, when she found out that their daughter had been killed, murdered, she went to the dad of the child and she said, listen, darling, I have one good news and one bad news. I've got some good news and some bad news. What do you want first? And he said, well, tell me the bad news first. And he said, well, our daughter has been shot. And the good news, well, the prime minister will be at the funeral. I mean,
that's mind control.
This for me, either this is absolute bull, then it did not happen, but it was referred to me as what was said. And that to me also sounds like mind control. So is it possible, since if they have used that island for these type of experiments or control for generations, that this is the way that they have controlled exactly these families for this thing?
Yeah.
I don't know, Alfred. I do not know.
Yeah, the only thing is that since the island was so controlled, it could have been a crisis actor, but you're saying it wasn't a crisis actor because the youths were not crisis actors. They were actually shot. That is, the parents were given open coffins. Were the parents given open coffins, or was it a closed coffin funerals?
It's always closed coffins in Scandinavian countries. I do not know. I just find it extremely difficult that so many would be involved in something like that and it wouldn't leak out. I don't know. I really do not know.
Right. Huh.
I mean,
well,
I would very much hope that no one got killed there, but I don't know.
We don't know. Well, Norway is one of the deepest and darkest, its structure, of the New World Order countries. It's participated in it's through the Wallenberg Foundation. That's a funnel for Israel and for the New World Order to operate the Tromsø HARP facility to trigger the Fukushima false flag, and HARP nuclear false flag, and the Norwegian royal family. And I know that we've had colleagues recently who went to Norway. They went there with a valid passport, a valid visa. They were arrested at the airport, put in jail for 2 days, interrogated, never charged with anything, and then deported with 2 immigration officers back to the U.S. And they never committed, they were never charged with anything, except that they understand what false flags are about. They had an issue with the British monarchy. Can
I just say that that Ingunn, I told about Ingunn Sigurdsdottir, who created Iceland, she commented on Norway at the moment, and she said, it is like living in hell. It is a beautiful place, but it's absolute hell to live there. And I met quite a few people there that had been taken in, to mental institutions for absolutely nothing. And there were 2 or 3 of the few people that I met that were heavily in debt because the system had just said well, you're unemployed, but you studied on your free time. You're not allowed to do that. Here's $10,000 in fines. Or there was another guy, one woman that just walked down the highway. She missed the bus and she was picked up by the police, ended up in a mental institution, high security, locked in. It's it was very shocking for me to hear these things.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, it's a psychopathic nation. Norway is a psychopathic nation as a nation, and this is more evidence of the fact that Norway is a psychopathic nation and that its leadership is deeply psychopathic. Now, when we last met, we talked about a number of other false flags, the Copenhagen and the Paris false flag, and you've been seeing all of these as connected because you've been seeing a false flag almost like a traveling theater company that goes from country to country to country. Do you think that it was? Yeah. Do you think that it was the CIA, Mossad, MI5, whoever traveling a false flag troop ensemble that arrived in Norway and said, "Okay, here comes trouble. We're going to pull off a false flag in Norway"?
I was able to publicly predict the Copenhagen shooting 1 month before it happened by seeing these signs, and also when looking at operation false flags like Toronto, the Sydney siege, Paris, Charlie Hebdo, the Copenhagen, and so on. But this one was earlier. There are some signs because right before this happened as well, there were some writings in the paper about Muslims reacting against the people making cartoons of Muhammad. Exactly the same theme that was used again and again and again was just the days building up to this one. Same there. The people that was wounded, if they were wounded in Oslo and killed, some of them were well-known people from the government building, and so I don't see the same faces like I do on the other ones. This one is a different one, but it was also earlier on. It was 2011. The other ones have come a lot later. But I do think that to shut down a whole machine like they did, I mean, I've only scraped on the surface. There are things like when the police were moving towards the island, somebody jammed the microphone so that nobody could use that as well. And that's exactly how they did on during the JFK assassination as well. One of the motorbike guards escorting police officers blocked his microphone on the radio, blocking that channel. They did that as well. There's so many of these things that they've used the same. So whoever carried it out were using the whole, what do you call it? The whole
template,
the whole color box, whatever little ingredient to make it stop from working. They use the whole shebang there, and that you do not do easily. So I think we're talking also these black helicopters that were not identified, 2 black helicopters. For me, and also that the police units were there to guard the US Embassy and the Israeli Embassy. The only police officers that were not pulled out were there to guard these 2 embassies. I think not by coincidence. So from my experiences, CIA, Mossad, cooperation, NATO, New World Order, these are the ingredients. I don't know about the MI6, but I think that I know that one of the shooters was speaking Norwegian when he was walking around shooting people. But they said he used an odd dialect. They couldn't really place it. So, but these people, I mean, they're mercenaries, assassins of all nationalities. There was also one police helicopter, when it finally landed on the island, they said that it picked up a sharpshooter from the island and then flew around the island looking for the shooter and supposed to take him out. I would very much like to say they got one of the shooters out, that way. One or several of the shooters out that way from the island. This is a big operation. Yeah. And I do believe that the thing that they hit the government building with was some kind of HARP weapon.
Right.
That the damages
weapon, a directed energy weapon.
Yeah, exactly. The damages does not match up at all. But I ask a big question. These soldiers, unidentified soldiers that is running around just minutes after the explosions, pulling out a white cable that seems to be going maybe around the block. My journalist friend, he said that might be able to create sort of like an energy field that within that cable radius, or whatever you say, that the energy that could be focused on the buildings within it. I don't know, but they were pulling it up and they were using blue gloves. So that are normally MPs, uniform personnel do not use blue plastic gloves. So whatever that cable was, I think it's very important. Right. And also they were parked right out the what do you call it, the High Court of Oslo. That is where one of the vehicles was parked that these soldiers were using.
Right.
So the whole thing is very... And also when you look at, for instance, when I look at locations when it comes to false flag operations, they need somewhere close by for logistics, coffee, food, showers, makeup, the electricity, explosives, all of these things. Also where the extras can be hidden and so on, take in, take out, and so on. And when you look at the Boston bombing, I bet you my right arm that the place they were using was the Boston Library. That is where the Boston Globe went out just before the explosions, saying there's going to be a bomb drill right opposite the entrance to the local library. Right. A library is a perfect place, especially on these dates, because on Patriots Day and so on, it's closed down. It's got all the facilities you need. Nobody can see in. You do whatever you need, and then Monday morning everything is clean, perfect. Nobody noticed you in there or out there and so on. Then at the Copenhagen shooting, the synagogue killing, When you go there, you stand in front of the synagogue. It's a small little back street. You turn around 180, you're looking straight into the entrance of the Copenhagen library, where I bet you it was exactly the same thing that part of that operation was controlled from. And when you go to Oslo, right by where the bomb exploded, the so-called bomb exploded, you got the Oslo main library. So we're back to the same patterns being repeated.
Right. Yeah, so you're putting together all of the elements, and this is like a blueprint, that a cookie cutter blueprint that is being followed by this, traveling paramilitary PSYOP operation that goes from country to country, depending on whatever strategic theater and upper theater they're trying to affect.
I ran this thought with Chip Tatum, who's been part of False Flags himself, who's been part of the staff meetings before, during, and after these false flag operations. They always have follow-up meetings, seeing, did we get the required effect we were looking for? Do we need to amplify it by backup secondary things and so on? Very cold the way they approach these things. But he said this thing about a horror show on tour. He said it's not only plausible, it's not only possible, it's plausible, he said, than being transported with NATO planes from country to country, landing on army bases, NATO bases, and then being transported to location, carrying it out and out again.
Wow, so this is NATO planes and bases that are actually carrying out the false flags from country to country.
My theory. It's just what I say. This is, these things could be carried out, which gives me great hope, because then we're not looking at a massive thing in every single country. There are all of these entities that are trained for these things and taking part of these awful events. We're looking at the same, like a rock group on a global tour.
Oh yeah,
coming to a theater near you soon. So it's just a small, tiny little group playing it out again and again and again and again.
Yeah. I can remember with another colleague standing at one of the secret. There are about five air bases, U.S. air bases on Okinawa, and we went to one of the main ones, and these are kind of they're all sort of secret, although they're not secret on the island. But we just sat there, and there were these unmarked large passenger unmarked aircraft that would come in, one after another. They're all unmarked. Rendition, false flag. I mean, it's all the dark forest trying to do its dark arts, but it's just not working anymore. I mean, how can Norway hide anymore? It's just operating under mind control and terror, and here we are. There are going to be any number of thousand people to watch this. Their secret is out. We've broken the seal. There is no more secrecy on this. They're busted. I mean, they're known. They can't operate anymore. They're known.
But Alfred, this is why I put myself online with this, to bust break the template. Just break it for them. Chip said a really interesting thing to me. He said that these forces have a very tight timeline. There are many different operations planned ahead because they want to get into total control. And every single operation is needed for the next ones to be successful. So every time we mess it up, it breaks the timeline. And he said it can take months for them to recuperate. So I say, let's keep messing it up. And this is why I always encourage people, when they hear about drills in their neighborhood, wherever they hear about it, go there, bring their friends, bring their family, bring cameras, and film it while it's being set up. Make it very, very obvious to the people setting it up that they are being observed and filmed. In this way, we can hopefully, in a totally non-violent way, expose them, saying to them, if you even dare to try and pull that trigger, we've blown your cover. You're screwed, Don't even think of it. And by that way, we can start being one step ahead instead of always being one step behind. Yeah. And I think by saying this in so many different interviews, I believe that in at least 2 occurrences, we managed to stop these false flags. So let's keep messing it up.
Yeah. Now tell me, we've sort of come to the end of this of this segment. Are there any details or perspectives or facts that you had wanted to get out that you haven't gotten out yet, that you'd like to tell the audience?
I would like to tell the audience not to be afraid. I mean, we live in extreme times, scary times. When you look at it with a logic mind, we're done. There's no way out of this madness. At the same time, I feel so strong in my heart that we're going to be fine. We just need to be brave, to stand in truth, and just expose this by the mean of the power of truth. Just put the spotlight right on them, and they will self-destroy. I think that they're really getting very, very worried and scared. And that's why many of these operations are getting so sloppy as well, because they do not know what to do. They only have very few methods to control us with. And if we expose them one by one, they're not that many, the magic for them doesn't work anymore. And what are they going to do? What are they going to do if we're not afraid anymore? So this is why I do everything I can to expose what is going on so that people can see the signs and also understand that you're not living in a totally mad world where everything is going into total madness and violence. You're living in a beautiful world, absolute stunning world, but where there is like a serial killer that is totally harassing the neighborhood. It's the number of people behind that is like a grain of sand on a beach. It is the level of madness it looks awful, but when you really look at it compared to all the goodness in the world, it is like a fart on a beautiful summer day. It smells awful, but it's not really there. We just need to expose it, transcend it, and stand in beauty. So when people ask me, but what can I do? What can I do? I would say, let go of fear. Don't be fearful of them. If you are not afraid, they do not know what to do with you. They cannot control you. And it's by fear that they have had you by the balls for such a long time. It is time to let go of that fear. Just let it go, let it go. Turn off the TV, stop the propaganda machine pumping all of this crap into your head, and just start appreciating your life. Fill your heart with gratitude and lift your spirit. The more grateful you are, the higher your spirit and the stronger you feel. So that in the next situation where that might be scary, you will be able to make a good decision. Like me being totally grateful for all the things in my life have made it possible for me to look into the eyes of somebody who might have been part of this awful atrocity without hate, without anger, but absolute fearless. I'm not bending to you. It doesn't matter if you're armed or threatening me with hidden threats or whatever. It does not matter. I am not backing down.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. the more of us who wake up, if we're talking thousands from this program, it's worthwhile. It is so wonderful to see all of this happening. And I would just say, if anyone would like to support me in my efforts, please, finances is the thing.
Yeah.
I so want to be out there, because when you're on site, that is where you can make the magic happen. And
Right.
I'm like a car without gas in this tank. Help me fill up my tank, donations, buy my book, buy my newsletter, whatever. Just get me out there. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, but we need to help each other. And I would very much like to say to people that are wealthy, if you do not support people like myself and Alfred, your money will be totally useless within a very short future. We're talking months. If they get away with this, you are going to be one of us that have nothing. So why not use them for something good? Pump it into people like Alfred, beautiful Alfred, myself, G. Fetz, Zen Gardner, Max Segan. There's Cynthia McKenna, my God, Jim Fetz, Dr. Kevin Barrett. There's so many beautiful people out there who are doing everything they can. But all of them, I don't know any of these people that are not on their knees financially. So make a difference.
Right.
For your own sake. Support us to help you.
Yeah, so people can go to lightonconspiracies.com. Is that correct?
That is very correct. Or they can go to your website, Alfred. I know you need this as well.
Well, you're out there. You're the person going to Copenhagen. You're the person going to the island of Utøya, to Oslo. You're out there now, and so we need to back you up in that work. I really want to thank. Sorry, Ole, go ahead.
No, do you know what I plan to do? I plan to do what I've been thinking about calling terror tourism. To bring people terror tourism.
TERRA?
Terror.
TERROR. Terror tourism.
Terror tourism. To go on site, bring groups to go on site of these events and just show them on location what actually happened, Yeah. And also what I'm really looking for is like a film crew with finances to make a series of documentaries, go from place to place, from 7/7 bombings and the beheading in Woolwich in outside London, to the Queen's Day massacre in Holland, to the Palme assassination, to the Utøya in Oslo, to 9/11, to Oklahoma City, to some of the mass shootings, to Sandy Hook, and just on location, just totally pull it apart and debunk the official story. That I would very much like to do.
Great. Yeah, you should do tours. You can put them up on your website. We would be very, very happy to cover your tours. We could do a live broadcast from one of your tours. We have the ability through a couple of services to do live broadcasts. If you want to do tours from any of the sites of any of the false flags, we would be glad to do them. And I think that there would be people who would sign up for your tours just to we will just show this thing up as the false flag that it is.
This is the thing. Get me there. Get me the tickets. Just like the guy who in Holland who gave me the ticket to Norway.
Yeah.
This thing has helped to get all of these things out there. Every single place I go, I promise I will make a difference for the world. I promise.
Right after keep an open mind, and right after this interview, let's you and I have a brief entrepreneurial conversation, because I think that I know people who are running successful touring where they'll go to UFO tour spots or extraterrestrial tour spots, or like go to nature tour spots, and they're just like you and me that do it out of websites, and they book a bunch of people, and everybody pays for their ticket, and you get your ticket free from, you know, the travel agent, or there's a percentage in there. So I can show you how to do that.
I'm your guy. I mean, whatever can make a difference. Count me in. Count me in.
We'll start with 9/11. We'll go to Dallas.
Yeah. Oh my God. I would love it. I would love it.
Blow them out of the water. It sounds really great.
I would love it.
So great.
I would like to be like Sir David, so what's the name? Sir Attenborough, you know, the nature programs, but I would be on location for false flags.
Yeah,
that would be
like you have tours. This is JFK, 9/11, Katrina, Sandy Hook, and then you go over to England. You do 7/7. It's just like, you know, it's just like
the Charlie Hebdo, Copenhagen.
Yeah, Charlie Hebdo.
We could do a cruise ship.
Yeah, you know,
or we could rent an old NATO aircraft and go from just use it the way they do it,
up and down. Well, I must say that I really enjoy, and I've learned a great deal. Because we've done our own kind of tour, you and I, in these programs going from false flag to false flag, and in fact, our interviews could be part of the web page, you know, for those tours, and that, you know, you say, oh, here's a sample of Dallas, and you know what you've learned. And I can remember once in 1996, I was elected delegate to the Texas National Democratic Convention for the presidency. And I went there, and it was in Dallas. So I just did a Dallas JFK assassination tour for myself. And I toured all the spots there while I was there. And it's very interesting. So I think that's a great idea, and maybe after our interview here, if you have a few minutes, we can talk about it. But I certainly want to thank you for contacting us. I know that there's some urgency in getting this interview out, so we're going to be getting it out right away, because we want to send a signal back to those people at Utoya Island and in Norway, that murder will out, and that they can't hide anymore. Everybody knows, you know, everybody knows. Everybody knows that it's a false flag. Everybody knows the technology. Everybody knows who's involved, and your time's over. And that's my editorial. I'm sorry.
No. Hallelujah, baby.
Okay. It's been great here. Thank you so much. And I look forward to your joining us again as events develop. Ole, thank you.
Thank you so much, Alfred. And I just want to say, for the record, I'm not sweating because I'm nervous. I'm in Spain, and it's like I'm melting away here. So
good enough.
There's a heat wave.
Oh boy.
So, anyway.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Alfred. It's a real honor to be on your program, as always.
Thank you.